Hey fellow REIT investors. If you've been watching the REIT market lately, you might be thinking, here we go again, REITs are falling. Maybe interest rates are spiking again? And you wouldn't be alone. Because over the past 2 weeks, Singapore REITs have been sliding. Even steady names like CapitaLand Integrated Commercial Trust or CICT and CapitaLand Ascendus REIT or CLAR, the ones investors usually run to for safety, are down. So most people are probably thinking, must be rising rates again, better stay away. But here's the twist that nobody's talking about. Singapore interest rates are actually going down. That's right. The 6-month T-bill now offers a cutoff yield of 2.30%, while the 1-year T-bill stands at 2.29%. And yet, REITs are falling? It doesn't add up unless you realize the market's been fixated on the wrong headline. The US 10-year Treasury yields are back at or above 4.5%. This is what I personally call my fear index for REITs, and that's exactly what's been driving fear nowadays. Investors are reacting to Fed Chair Powell, to CPI numbers, and to rate delay chatter in the US. But here's the thing. Singapore is not the US. Our inflation is lower. Our central bank isn't the Fed. And our bond market is sending a very different signal. That's why today, I want to talk about this growing divergence between US and Singapore interest rates, and what it really means for REIT investors like you and me. Because if you've been relying on global headlines to make local decisions, I think you might be missing the signal hiding in plain sight. What the bigger picture looks like. Why the divergence? Let's start with what's happening in the US. Just a few months ago, investors were hoping the Fed would start cutting rates by mid-year. But now, that optimism has all but vanished. Inflation is easing, but not fast enough. And the Fed? Still cautious, still signaling patience. At the same time, US government debt levels are ballooning. And all that debt needs buyers. So bond yields are creeping higher again. Not necessarily because the economy is overheating, but because investors want better compensation for the risks they're taking. That's how we ended up with the 10-year Treasury yield back above 4.5%, even while the S&P 500 pushes new highs. It's like the stock market is celebrating, but the bond market is quietly muttering, you sure can celebrate or not. Now let's flip to Singapore, and this is where the contrast gets interesting. Unlike the Fed, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, or MAS, doesn't set interest rates directly. It manages monetary policy through the exchange rate. And since MAS has already completed its tightening cycle, our local rates are drifting lower. The clearest sign? Auctions are still seeing strong demand, with bid-to-cover ratios just above 2.0. Not sky-high, but definitely healthy. So why are investors still piling into Singapore government securities, or SGS? Because when the world gets noisy,